All right, everybody, welcome to the show. We have a very special show for you today. We have Santos Bonacci on the program. Santos, please say hi to the people.
Hi, listeners. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm honored to be here, and I will endeavor to, bless you with the best knowledge that I know is the knowledge that will set you free. And I will endeavor to be my best servant that I can in serving truth and the gods.
Thank you very much for joining us today, Santos. And we also have Expanding Realities Brandon Thomas on the show. This is a very special new show idea that we've been working on. It's called a Sharecast. Brandon, please say hi to the people.
Dude, Sharecast, grateful to be here, Jay. Thank you so much. Santos, pleasure to meet you, my friend. Big follower of your work for years, man. So thank you for what you've done and continue to do. And yeah, this is awesome. Sharecast, people. So we're going to do this in halvesies. You're going to go listen to this one now. This is part one. We're on how to kill a sacred cow, like the dopest show ever. And then part two, we're going to split this bad boy. And you're going to come on over to Expanding Reality. Come on. We'll give you a warm hug. Come on down and check out the other part of it. And it's a really cool way just to cross-pollinate. Rising tide raises all ships, baby, and we love that. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to this, guys.
Absolutely. And there is no one better to have on the show for this new idea that we've been hammering out than Santos Bonacci. So, Santos, maybe just give our listeners somewhat of a short biographical kind of snippet for everybody, just so they know where you're coming from. I mean, of course, most of our listeners are going to know who you are, because just like Brandon, I've been following you for years. But yeah, just a short little biographical snippet.
All right. Well, I'm just your ordinary guy growing up in rural Australia, Victoria, just north of Melbourne, the most locked down city in the world, by 3 hours on a tobacco farm. The only things that I could say would be different in my case is that I grew up bilingual. My both parents were Calabrian from southern Italy, and they had their Calabrian dialect. So languages featured in my early days. I was speaking two languages since I was born. And then the other thing was my parents converted to Jehovah's Witnesses from Catholic just after I was baptized at the age of 2 or 3 or whatever. And my mum got seduced by the Jehovah's Witnesses. And so I grew up as a witness and went to school very different. I was ethnic and I belonged to a weird cult. So from the early days, I was always sort of a little bit outcast, but accepted due to my friendliness and way of being able to deal with people and be very diplomatic and just get along. You know, I've had that ability to diffuse people that didn't like me and to bring people closer to me that were shy of me or whatever. But so I managed, but I always had that chip on my shoulder that I was different because I had this weird religion and I spoke this weird language. So the Australians at school, growing up in a rural area, they were a little bit more, you could say, racist, if you want to use that word, although I didn't really feel that because they always treated me nice. But when things got, I guess out of hand and they needed some leverage against me, then they turned on me as a wog. So I think you call them wops there. But in Australia, it's a wog, which comes from Western Oriental gentleman, I've been told. I don't know how that works, Western Oriental. But anyway, I was a wog. So, and of course, I had this black gollywog hairdo in my teenage years, so I was called a gollywog. Anyway, those are the two only things that really set me apart, which now have been a great contributing factor to my syncretism, because I learned, as a Jehovah's Witness, I did learn the Bible and theology. So I was grounded in theology and was always theological and was always waiting for Armageddon, this day that is upon us now where we're all locked down and everybody's could potentially starve to death or die from some, floating virus, which people believe in and what have you. So I remember reading the scriptures where it says, and in the last days there will be pestilences, there will be floods, there will be famines, there will be a great tribulation. And so that was always with me, even during my teen years where I was worldly and left the witnesses. And then at 19, I left at 19, came back left at 13, came back at 19. So those are all the teenage years. I was a worldly boy. So did the typical teenage things, smoked my weed. Led Zeppelin and Monty Python were my two staples. Couldn't live without those two. And fast cars and a girlfriend or two. Stuff that the witnesses looked down on and condemned. So I did that. And it was distasteful in the end. Even at 19, I realized there's nothing in this world that will satisfy me. And so I went straight back to the Jehovah's Witnesses thinking I was going to be serving God. And I got stuck there till about 2002, from say 82 to 2002. That's a good 30 years. No, that's 20 years, isn't it? Yeah, exactly. Good. I'm glad that number's been reduced, because I always thought it was 3 decades. And I thought, how the hell, how did I stay in an organization, which now I can see clearly is a controlled opposition run by the elites, fictional corporate structure, which just saps the money from people via contributions and gives them nothing in return in terms of spirituality. So me being a very spiritual guy, very mystical, transcendental, I was looking for things that would make me just be excited. That's why I listened to Led Zeppelin, because they brought me to how I call it, they bring you to the throne of God with just 2 or 3 bars of any song of theirs. It's just like, whoa, I'm out of the mundane world and I'm now flying with the angels. And Led Zeppelin just had that ability. So I'm glad they came along. They were my consciousness expanders. And they really, really helped me to keep sane. And Monty Python with their English humor, of course, magical stuff for me. And I'm glad of all those things. Everything that I did when I was younger, I'm still doing today. I'm theological. I'm a polyglot, multilingual, speak in 8 languages. I never say I speak 8 languages, because the ones toward the end, which are Japanese and Greek, are very, very basic, but very well grounded. I can still hold conversations in every single language that I've ever learned. So why do I mention that? Well, languages are very, very important in syncretism. The Pythagoreans said everything in the universe is made by the letters of the alphabet. Whereas the Jews, on the other hand, said, the Jews said that. The Pythagoreans and the Neoplatonists said all is number. So being very mathematical, of course, another famous Bonacci was Leonardo Bonacci, otherwise known as Fibonacci. He introduced the golden section into the Western Europe 800 years ago, fractions, the digital point. He deleted he was responsible for making the Roman numerals, which were very cumbersome. He made those obsolete virtually with introducing the Arabic numbers, which we still have today, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are just 90-degree turned Arabic numbers, and then they are now the numbers that we use, which are way more efficient, and that was a Bonacci. So I do, just by that name, I do have a very strong affection for numbers, although I'm not a great mathematician at all. I used to know how to multiply and subtract and add and all that very well, but not deeply, and nothing outstanding. What I was good at was spelling. I remember being young, I always passed the spelling test, A+, 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 A+. And English is one of those tricky languages which has many silent letters, many exceptions to the rule. It's a language which is good with lexigrams, which means words within words. For instance, heart has the word earth in it, ear, hate, tear. You'll find about 30 words. I've got a nice long list of all the words that you can find in heart. English is pretty much the most acrobatic, versatile language when it comes to lexigrams. And it is truly the language of astrotheology. And I've been blessed by being brought over. My parents immigrated in the same year, 1954, I think. And then my parents got married in 56. I was born in 63. So I consider that a great treasure to be born in an English-speaking country, to have grown up as Jehovah's Witness and bilingual. Always had my telescopes. I used to beg my mother to buy me a good telescope, and she never brought me satisfactory ones, but I would, whatever I had, I would try and map out the stars. Maths, language, all of these things now, I realize, set me up for syncretism, because I did pay attention. Especially with language. I remember when I was about 12, 13, I used to have notepads with all these difficult words that I wanted to remember so that I could know them, so that I wouldn't be left in the dark when intellectual people were speaking and I didn't miss what they were saying. It annoyed me that I'd go to the church and the pastor would say all these words and I'm like, well, I don't understand that, man. Those are big words, you know. So little boy struggling. So I said about being very good with words. And when I was 14 and a half, I was sick of school. I was out of there as well. So I went and picked tobacco on my father's tobacco farm and my uncle's. And so I was a tobacco farmer. And all the while, I didn't leave school in order to not learn. I left school and immediately the day after I joined a book club, the Double Bay Book Club. And I bought all these books, history, anthropology, archaeology. I bought as much as I could. So I had a library since I was 14, 15, right? And that has never changed. I've always been a book person. You cannot get syncretism without books. Intuition will not cut it. You need intuition, which I have a very powerful intuition, and I thank the heavens for that open intuition that I have, and I never, ever silence it. I always respect intuition and its role in understanding God, nature, the transcendental and everything. And I always have an open mind to all things. This is why when the stationary horizontal earth reappeared in my life after many years of laughing at it as a Jehovah's Witness, I remember many times saying, well, look how good the Bible is. It says the earth is round. And once upon a time, our ancestors thought the world was flat and stationary. You know, how stupid. Well, you see how the devil deceives people? Well, now I've realized that who's behind the 650 million mile an hour flying ball are the Satanist Jesuits themselves. Copernicus and his Copernican revolution, he was a Jesuit. So now I realized, and so when people were sending me these videos on the stationary earth, at first I laughed and said, please don't send me this rubbish, you know, but I'd have a quick look and see what they're saying. Yeah, they've got a point, but they don't understand physics, you know, they just don't understand. And they kept sending them. And I thought, well, I've got a responsibility here and have to do my due diligence, being a supposed truther and research and claiming that I'm teaching the truth. Well, automatically I realized that being an astrologer, that astrology only, the tropical Western system that we use, is geocentric. So to me, that everything just clicked after I realized that. Hey, what are you doing, man? You're fighting against Ptolemy's model. Ptolemy had the model down pat, the correct model, as the Earth being the center of the universe, thousands of years ago. Then all of a sudden, this guy called Copernicus comes along with this revolution. He revolutionized the world. And the Jesuits went about all over the plane of the Earth. China, they infiltrated China. It took them hundreds of years to persuade the Chinese to drop their flat Earth and adopt their globe, and the globalist revolution began. Hence, now we have global warming, global religion, global economy, global governance, global commerce, global lockdowns, global. And all they've got to power the engine of this absolutely demonic movement is a false idol, which they place on the kindergarten teacher's desk from kindergarten so that little children can be mesmerized and bow down to a false idol and think they live on something that provably is not moving.
So I've heard you say this before. You believe Copernicus may have been an organization of people, maybe a group of people, conglomerate. Do you think the same thing for the English language? Like with William Shakespeare was said to have created most of the English language. Do you think maybe also that he was a group of people?
Yeah, look, let no one ever tell you that that the English language was created by men. English is Anglish, is angelish. It is an angelic language and has its source in the heavens from time immemorial. And I do believe that it is the one and only true astrological / astrotheological language of the universe. Hence, why it is the universal language today. Why would a made-up language turn up at the end of days at the Gotterdammerung as the language that everybody wants to speak and everybody uses because it has 800,000 words in its dictionaries, whereas the next most voluminous language only has 200,000. That'll be French, German, and Italian, Spanish, etc. And English jumps 600,000 words from all the other languages on the plane. How does a language that is invented by Shakespeare or Bacon, Francis Bacon, or whoever they want to say, Milton, all these occultists, they're not smart enough to create this perfect language. English is absolutely the language of angels, and I agree with Linda Goodman. It is divine. It is the most worthy language to be called the universal language, and hence that's why it is right now and will be forever. There's nothing that will displace it. There's no need to displace it. It's the most functional, acrobatic, versatile language that exists, bar none. Nothing compares to English. Nothing. I can do astrotheology in Portuguese, French, Italian, many languages. I include all languages in my presentations, every single language, including Magyar, which is otherwise known as Magadan. Adan is Adam. Magadan, magic Adam. M-A-G, mag, Adan. In Spanish, Adan is Adam. They say, the Hungarians, they say that Magyar or Magadan was the original language. And then English came from that and Hebrew. And all. Then the Hebrews will say theirs is. Then the Basque people will say theirs is. Then the Prakrit people, the Sanskrit people, the Tamils. I mean, the Tamils have got, every plausible right to claim that their language is the original because it's pretty good. They're all great. The Mayans, the Aztecs, they've all got great language systems. But I believe I've proven comprehensively and exhaustively, without a doubt, that the original language is what I call etymological. It comes from atoms and the sounds that all the atoms make. And this is why we have a study called etymology. It's another way of saying etymology. Etymology is etymology. And I've shown in my presentations how all words derive, come from, and go back to atum. Hence why the Hermetica and the Egyptians said at the end of all of their phrasing, instead of saying amen, all is atum, all is atum, all is atum. Now in English, atum means the number one. A is the first letter. It has a numerical value in gematria of 1. T is the 20th, 2. U is the 21st, reduces down to 3. M is the 13th, reduces down to 4. There it is right there. 1, 2, 3, 4. A-T-U-M. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10, reduces down to 1. So all is atum. Same with Adam. which is another version of saying atum, Adam, because D and T are interchangeable and M and N are interchangeable. A is 1, D is 4, A is 1, M is 13. In this case, we do not reduce the 13 down to 4. We leave it as it is, add up all the numbers, you get 19. 19, 1 plus 9 is 10. 10 reduces down to 1. Let me give you a few other examples, because all of these words, I'm going to tell you right now, they all mean one, and they all the same word. Atum, Dan, as in Adan in Spanish, Adam. Adam, atom, Adem with an E, Adem with an E. Aten, as the Egyptians called the god Aten, the Akhenaten. The Atenists ruled the world at one time. Odin, which is the Russian word for one, Odin, and which the Nordic people call Woden, their one god. So you go to Russia, and to say one, you say the name Adam. Odin means one. And Eden. There's 9 versions of Adam. Add up all those letters, whether you reduce the double numbers, reduce them or not, but you must be consistent. You can't reduce, in the same word, you can't reduce one number and next door to that, keep it whole. You can't do that. You either, the whole word is reduced or the whole word is whole. And all of those 9 words, I'll repeat them. Atum, Dan, Adam, atom, as in the atom. Adem, Edom, Edom, which was the son of Jacob. Esau became Edom. Aten, Odin, and Eden, they all mean one numerically. How does it happen that Adam, Atum, Aten all mean one? Because you see, all is one, and one is all. As Stairway to Heaven of Led Zeppelin said, the last words, when all are one and one is all, to be a rock and not to roll. You see, that song was teaching people how to get to heaven. And people like to say, oh, weren't they satanic? That's a satanic song, Santos. How can you like Stairway to Heaven? Well, it's a Stairway to Heaven. It's not AC/DC's I'm on the highway to hell. They're not celebrating hell. They're celebrating heaven and how to get there. By buying gold, as it says in Revelation, Jesus says, buy gold from me so you can be spiritual rich. Clothe yourselves with linen so people don't see your spiritual nakedness. Buy salve for your eyes so you're not blind and you can see. Well, they're ripping off, that's a biblical song. Stairway to Heaven is absolutely 100% biblical. My favorite book, the Bible. So what we begin to see now is that the Bible is encoded with numerology all over the place. There are many 12s in the Bible. I think there's about 80 different kinds of 12s, 12 disciples, 12 sons of Israel, 12 tribes of Israel, 12 sons of Jacob, 12 sons of Ishmael, 12 precious stones on the ephod of the high priest, 12 loaves of bread on the table, the monstrance table in the tabernacle, 12 copper calves holding up the holy see in the tabernacle, 12 trees which leaves give life in the garden in Revelation, 12 pillars in the temple of my God in Revelation. The list goes on and on. And Josephus, the Jewish historian, and Philo of Alexandria, who lived around the same historical supposed footprint of Jesus Christ, they said, yeah, those numbers in the Bible, when you see 12s everywhere and 7s, that's from the zodiac. The 7 are the 7 planets and the 12s are the 12 signs of the zodiac. Right? This is why when Jesus walks on the circuit of Galilee, you go to Strong's Concordance and you look up circuit of Galilee, the zodiac of the Greeks. So Jesus, the Son, who walks on the ecliptic with his 12 disciples, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, now begins to make sense. Because why would the Son of God come and pick 12 of all numbers, a limited, exclusive set of 12? What if 14 said, look, no, 2 more came in and said, but Jesus, we want to follow you. We're great. We're apostles. Look at us. Look, we're equally as competent as those 12. No, it has to be 12. It has to be 12. I mean, I could do a lot of Monty Python skits about the rubbish that people believe that the Bible is literal. And, it's like teaching your children about Santa Claus. He's coming down the chimney, but don't have a camera ready waiting for him because you'll miss him anyway. Just in case, children, Santa Claus comes from the North Pole. Okay, mummy. And so this is what the pastors are doing in church. Oh, Jesus is literal, and he who says that Jesus didn't come in the flesh is the Antichrist. Who says that Christ did not come in the flesh? And the Word was made flesh. And they quote all these scriptures erroneously, right out of context, to prove their historical literal Jesus case, which is totally flawed, totally unrealistic, and totally stupid. Because a gospel is a gospel is a gospel is a gospel and will never, ever, ever be history. If it were history, well, it would sound like a history book, historical book, but it doesn't. It sounds like a fairy tale on steroids. But it doesn't mean it's not telling the truth. In the fairy tale, in the myth, is contained more truth than in a whole book or a whole library of books, in one myth. And that's why the Bible is stupendous, because when you unravel it, you begin to see the layers upon layers upon layers in that book. It is not a one-dimensional book. It's a spiritual book, which means it talks to you on all the levels which you are created. You have an emotional body, mental body, a spiritual body, alchemical, sexual, physical, celestial, causal, etheric. You're made up of many bodies, and the Bible caters to those bodies and teaches you that you are just that. God made flesh. That's why it says the Word was made flesh, because you are the sons of God. We are the sons of God. Hence, we are gods, as Jesus said. Did I not say, does it not say in the Psalms that I said to you, ye are gods? Why are you diminishing yourself then and you think you're a poor little humble sinner? It can't do anything good. You will do badness if you think that. But if you know and remember that you are from God and of God, and essentially God in quality but not quantity, then you'll get back on track. And then you'll respect yourself and God and others, because you will know your proper place in the universe, that you are not a mundane blob of meat. You are a spiritual, transcendental, magnificent, electromagnetic, undifferentiated, unqualified creation from source. And you'll always be connected to source. You will always be of the source. And woe unto those pastors who teach anything less than that. Woe unto them. Shame on them for diminishing all their adherents to their church and making them little like snails and worms, in the presence of other beings. The Buddhists in Japan, they laugh at the Westerners, how they diminish man into a sinner and a good-for-nothing, flagellating, evildoer. No, they always honored other human beings, but they never bowed down to other human beings. They bowed down to themselves when they bowed down, because they are glorious, and to show that they're honorable and that they know that they're God. How dare you bow down before someone? Oh, my Lord, my God, my God. You're just showing that you're weak. No one wants to see someone grovel. I don't know whether you've seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail, In Search of the Holy Grail.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was it a European swallow or an African swallow?
Yeah.
It's not a matter of where he grips it. It's a matter of weight ratios. I love that, dude. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, I've actually been thinking a lot about that movie lately. The scene where they're trying to figure out if the woman's a witch. Yeah. And if she floats, she's a witch.
Yeah.
That was my favorite scene.
Yeah, when he's like, she turned me into a newt, and everybody's standing there, a full man right there, and he's like, well, it got better. I say that, my wife and I say that to each other all the time. Like, it's just something you get over, being turned into a newt,
Yeah, well, I like when they have God as a cartoon in the clouds, and he's saying,
Yes.
"Hey, this is what are you doing in those stupid coconut things? I want you to go on a mission and look for the Holy Grail." Yes, Lord. Yes, good idea. He says, "Of course, it's a good idea."
Yeah.
Yes, Lord. And stop groveling. I hate when people grovel. So,
And I love it, and they show this. At work we take this PMDB classes, it's personal management, disruptive behavior classes, and the one scene that the guy that does the class does every single year, he shows the scene from Monty Python where they're going to the cave where the bunny is killing everybody that tries to come near the cave,
Yeah.
and they're like, "What are you talking about? It's just a little bunny," and he's like, "But it's fast and it's got the teeth, but." Look at the bones, you know what I mean? And it's like it's a really great metaphor because it's like it doesn't matter the appearance of the thing that you think you're witnessing. Look at the evidence around, you know. And a lot of people miss that lesson.
Perfect.
yep, they run in headlong, ears back, nose forward to their death, like a lamb to the slaughter. And this is what the churches are churning out: sheeple and chattel. You know,
And-
they're not
and it-
good shepherds.
And here we are over here like, I told you, I warned you, but did you listen? No.
They had to get burned. I got burned as a Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah, you know, that's actually really fascinating. I don't know how I missed that from your origin story. How do you think that, I mean, you explained it pretty well in the beginning, but I mean, how does that really affect somebody? Did you realize that you were in a cult by the time you left, or did you just kind of figure that out afterwards upon reflection?
I just saw the artificial hypocrisy of the people and that they were not anything of substance. There was no substance there. It was a dead entity. I was walking into a congregation of dead people, and it was not inspiring. It should have been inspiring. It should have been something with love, real love, not hypocritical love, doing things to the side of men, but doing it out of a good heart, really sincere good heart. But with the Jehovah's Witnesses, it's all about writing down your hours. How many hours of service did you do? You know, 10 hours this month, you know. I did 4 Saturdays in a row, 2 hours every morning, and you write it down, and you've got to put your reports in, brothers. Jehovah wants you to keep organized. This is a very organized organization here. Jehovah runs a tight ship. And so everything was for the appearances, you know. Oh, brother so-and-so is going to give a talk. Brother so-and-so is outstanding. He's such a loving brother. And it's all just a show. And I just could see through it. My spirit was saying to me, this is not a place for you, man. You know, it's just not the right place. You're not getting satisfied. Why? I don't know. I suppose that happens when someone outgrows their partner and has to move on because their partner's gone in a different direction. And they didn't know that when they were married because they were seemingly going the same way, but then all of a sudden, things change. And they have to break that relationship because otherwise it gets toxic. You can't stay in it. And that's why divorce is what's the word when you have a contingency?
Contractual. I mean, it's legal. It's yeah.
Yeah, but there is a thing called divorce because relationships like that are just, in most cases, are not meant to go forever. You know, you're supposed to get what that person has for you at the time, learn, grow, move on.
Yeah, it calls into question that idea of soul, like soul partners or whatever. What do they call that?
Twin
Soulmates?
flames?
Twin flames,
Soulmates.
but soulmate. Thank you. I don't know why I just tarted out on that word there real quick, but it's so those because it's a vibrational thing, perhaps, or I look at it this way. This is why Neil Donald Walsh wrote in his Conversations with God series that you never know how you're going to feel on any given tomorrow. So this idea that you're going to just feel the same or have the same taste. I mean, people's tastes in food change all the time. This is why monogamy is such a challenging thing because of the vibrational concept at play here, that you have to vibrate at the same rate. Now, what's really great is my wife and I, we kind of vibrate together. And so we really have figured this out for now, you know, who knows? Because you never know how you're going to feel on any given tomorrow. But that's why relationships don't work of any caliber. That's why, though, it's easier when you're going through some sort of level up in consciousness or something like that, then it's easier to kind of lose friends. You see that happen all the time, but friends come and go. That's why you're vibrating at different frequencies. So like attracts like at that point, and so all of these things come in at you at which you vibrate. So partners are a little bit more challenging, but what I've also figured out because I've made this observation is the solution to this is to work on yourself, and both of you have to do it though. So once you go within, the reflections of that, which I think that all the world around you is a mirror of you anyway. You mirror those changes in your partner, and so it's actually something that you change the world around you by changing you, but even down to your partner, which it's very tricky, but yeah, absolutely possible.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So,
And the universe will bring the right people at the right time for your growth rate and the level at which you are, and to keep you, if you are moving forward and transforming, those people will turn up.
yeah, 100%. So I wanted to ask you while we had you, because you're the man to ask this. So Jesus allegedly could walk on water. So whenever he walked on rivers, did he stay in the same spot and the river flowed underneath him, or did he go down with the river?
Exactly. Good point.
We need the answer.
Yeah. So Jesus walking on water is a parable. It's obviously not literal. You know, I mean, not that someone who has great powers of magic can't do that. And I'm not excluding that great ascended ones, masters of electromagnetism cannot do that. They can do anything. Jesus said, you can do these things that I do and more. And supposedly that was after resurrecting someone from the dead. He said, don't marvel. He says, you will do things like this and greater. So we have the power to do that, but it's obvious that it's not talking about a literal walking on water. Otherwise, you would see the wording would be like specifications or information that is more coherent logically and not mythologically as such. And Jesus stepped out of the boat and walked on the waters and looked back, and his disciples were sleeping in the hull. And Peter came and saw the Lord and said, Lord, may I join you? I can see you're walking on water. And Jesus said, yes, but have strong faith. And so Peter started walking on the water as well. And then all of a sudden he started sinking. We see in here is a great lesson that was being taught by the scriptures, that we need to walk on the Roman maritime waters and not swim and be asleep in the ship, the citizenship, like the disciples were. They believed they didn't have enough faith to walk on waters. You see, to get out of this system and lose the legal name, in my case, Bonacci, which belongs to the people who copyrighted it, the Jesuits and the Vatican, it's not my name. The only name I have is the name that was given to me by my parents, which is Santo. So in order to lose that and live off the grid and live without the government big brother supporting me, the government, I want to pay taxes so I can have welfare, and I need my payments and I need my bank account. One who is able to do that and remain in honor and have his own wealth, he needs to have faith in God, because now he is not under maritime law. The cops, the judges, the government, the politicians, they can't touch him. He's out of their jurisdiction. Out of their jurisdiction. In fact, if you look at what's going on in Australia right now, the Aboriginals have reclaimed Australia, and they've pitched their tents in front of the Canberra Parliament House. And the other day, 50 or 60 black guarded, armed federal police came marching down to arrest one of the Aboriginals. And the chief of Australia, the chief of the Aboriginals, he came out and says, get out. And you see the policeman backing up. No one has the power to do that who has a corporate name. Me, Mr. Bonacci, I can't do that. I've sold like Esau sold his birthright to Jacob for a pot of stew. When we were children, we had our footprints and blood taken from the sole of our feet, and given over to the crown, to crown copyright our name, crown meaning Kronos, meaning Saturn, meaning Satan, we're gone. But this Aboriginal, you see how he commanded 60 fully armed SWAT team, federal police, and they all walked backwards like this. And they listened to him in fear. Every one of them was shitting their pants because he said, you have no jurisdiction. You're illegal. You're in my land. I'm the king. I tell you to get out. You've got to get out of this country now. And you know what? There were politicians there. There were all sorts of powerful, creepy-looking Masonic Jesuit type. They're all of the same ilk and stock. They're all from the Freemason look, that Men in Black look, corporatized, lobotomized, order followers, robots. We will kill you and tase you if you don't listen to our mandates. Where's your mask? And yet that Aboriginal, he was walking on their waters. He wasn't in their citizenship sleeping like the disciples. See, the Lord Jesus taught us how to be a king, as he taught us well how to be a priest. And he said, you will be kings and priests with me for 1,000 years. Now, I'll have a smoke on that since I saw you having a smoke.
Dude, this is awesome. Santos, it's just an honor, dude, just to hang out with you. Like we said, I've been seeing you for years, man. This is so cool.
Likewise.
Yeah, it really is, because I remember I might have first encountered your work maybe 2012, 13 maybe. And I think I just saw one of your presentations where you had, the Zodiac, you had the Zodiac circle on the back, and I'd already been pretty big into astrology at that point. And it was around 2010 I started learning, that you're more influenced by the way that the planets are aligned at your birth, so it's more dependent on your rising and your descendant and Mercury, all that stuff. And when I first saw that, I don't think I could I couldn't think straight, I think, for maybe a couple of days. And I was just like, no, it is all the same. Like all these different religions, they're saying the exact same thing. It was the first time I encountered that. And I had seen Zeitgeist after that. But it was, I began reading the Bible with that understanding that there was something deeper under there. And it was your work that actually did that for me.
Oh, look, the Bible is the greatest treatise on astrology that ever existed. Everything in that book is astrological. From the verse in Job 38:32, where God says to Job, do you know the zodiac? Which is translated Mazzaroth, by the way. Do you know the zodiac, Job? Do you know how to tell forth Orion, Ursa Major, the Pleiades, Bootes? Do you know my constellation of the circle in the sky that goes round and round every year, every day over your head? Do you know it? And Job was like, yes. Well, because if you don't, I will reject you. So this is why Jesus taught in parables. This is the disciples said, why do you teach in parables, Lord? Because it is forbidden to teach this to the gross-minded individuals, because they will trample on these pearls. It's like throwing pearls to swine. You must protect these words, and you must understand that when I speak like this, it means this. It doesn't mean what you thought I said. You have to think. To be a proper Christian, enlightened, you got to think. You just can't take words at face value. If I say, John said Peter is an idiot, well, that was Peter talking there. But if I say John said Peter is an idiot, well, then that's John calling Peter an idiot. So just by what do you call that in grammar where you pause?
Just a comma, just a break.
Yeah, just by that function in language, you can change the meaning of a word. So let's do it again. John said Peter is an idiot. John said Peter is an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's why the Hebrews never put any commas and never put any punctuation. That's it, punctuated. When you speak with punctuation, you can change a 4-word sentence and invert it and flip it 180 degrees to mean the opposite. So you never listen to when a cop says, "Hey, you," and you're walking with your back against him. What's your tendency to do when you hear that?
Turn around.
The moment you do, you're in a contract. It's called an adhesion contract. And guess what? Next thing, he's got you in handcuffs and he's asking you for your ID. What's your surname? What's your address? What's your postcode? All postcodes are official. All officers are part of the Inquisition. So are persons. Persons comes from parsons, and a parson is a minister of the church. That's why we have the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Agriculture, the Minister of, all these ministries. What the hell are ministries doing in government? What are officers? Officer, can I have your number, please? And people think they're smart when they call policeman an officer. Officer. Well, they're just confirming that they're talking to an inquisitional officer, because all officers, all of them, and postcodes, all of them belong to the Vatican. That's why when you do a tax return, they want you to get a tax rebate by claiming that you have an office in your house and you can get 10% off your tax. They want you to have an office because they want you to be officers. Every taxpayer should be an office. And they should all be persons. You know, we don't want to be persons. I'm a man. I'm not a person. I am also a person, but I know what the word means, so I don't just say I'm a person. I use the word. I don't mind. I've reclaimed that word. Some people in the sovereignty movement say, "Oh, don't use person. Just don't use it." No. You can use it. You can use the word understand. You don't have to revert to understand and overstand and all this hocus pocus. You can say the word understand. It's fine. But remember that when the judge says, "Do you understand?" and you say yes, you're going to jail. Because you stand under him. Because you said, "Yes, I understand." So what are you going to speak in court? English or legalese? Because most of us, even on the street, we are speaking legalese. And we are entrapping and putting spells on our brothers and sisters and ourselves by using it. You see, when you go into court, I would suggest you say, "Can I please know what the official language is?" What did I just say? Official language. Well, every country, not nation, nation is sovereign, country is corporate. Every country has this thing, what they call a, where was I going? What was the word? Sorry. Person? No, not person.
Sovereign. You were talking about sovereign, and whenever the language, the official language of a nation, right, versus the country. Okay.
Sorry. Every country has an official language. You go to Wikipedia and you go to Nigeria, and it'll tell you population, official language. Ooh. But do the nomads in Nigeria and the tribes in the woods and in the hills, do they know this official language? Yeah, because it's the office of the Inquisition. That's where the main office of the world is, the post office. They own it. They control offices. You don't want to be an officer or a person. You want to be a man standing on the land and hold your ground. And do not be swearing questions. Sorry, sir. Sorry, I don't answer questions. Why don't you answer questions? I don't answer questions. What are you doing here then? I don't answer questions. No worries. All right. Before I go, you got the time there? Trap. Because if you answer, then you just thwarted and forfeited all of what you just consolidated and established with the fictional officer, that you don't answer questions. So why did you go and answer him when he asked for the time? Handcuffs.
But jail. is even answering his question by saying that you don't answer questions considered engagement?
No, because you have to answer. I mean, not answer. You have to speak, because silence is considered guilty. Silence is considered no answer, and it's the same as talking too much. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know how this diabolical system has set up its rules of what's it called? Rules of engagement.
Mm-hmm.
They have their tricks, and they're trained. They are trained. You'll see cops always do it. What's your name? Gives you got any ID? Where do you live? In my body. Now you got a house here. Where do you lay your head in your bed? What's the address? They want that address. Why? Because an address is an office, is a person, is a corporate fiction.
I've seen a lot of these videos, these sovereign citizen videos on YouTube, and they're always spectacular. What's the origin of this whole legal system, and when was it that people started getting wise to the fact that they could opt out of it?
The roots of the legal system, you must know and understand, is ecclesiastical. It is rooted in a satanic religion, which has co-opted the Bible and inverted its true meaning to a corporate dead sense, dead letter of the word. And so that's why they use the Bible. And then people say, oh, you like the Bible, Santos, do you? Oh, well, well, it's the Freemasons put it in all of their courtrooms and it's a satanic system. Therefore, the Bible's satanic. No, neither are the courtrooms. They are all designed as churches. They have a pulpit, they have a bench, they have a cleric, which is a clerk. Well, one's religious and one's secular. A clerk and a cleric, it's the same word. You see, you go for a hearing, which is a confession. They summons you. You can only summons the dead. It's not a subpoena. You actually go in with their copyrighted legal name, and they summons you, and people don't get it, and they go in as a person, and they tell them their name. My name's Santo Bonacci, and I'm here to contest that in the hearing. Well, the judge is like, we've got one right in the palm of our hand, an idiot who's come to a hearing. Only dead people and people who have sinned go to a hearing, or dead people reply to a summons. So if you just think about it and study it enough, you will see that it's all ecclesiastical. And this is where many have become shipwrecked and run amok in the courts because they don't understand this. They don't understand that it is an ecclesiastical foundation upon which mercantile, commercial, contract, trust, what they call, what's the word that the sovereigns call is the law of the land. I can't. Anyway, all these laws, we've heard of maritime, admiralty law, mercantile, all of those are underpinned by ecclesiastical. So what we have is an inquisition. And when we pay a commercial instrument like a bill or a bill, that's a bull, a papal bull, well, then we are just paying an indulgence. That's what we're doing. We're just putting money into the coffers of the Vatican. Everything goes back to the Vatican. Give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, give to God what is God's. You shall not give your energy to Caesar. You do not. You are sinning, signing their papers. They want you to sign. You cannot get a loan. You cannot get a bond if you're in jail. You cannot do anything without sinning. They want you to be a sinner and to use the devil's corporate name because the crown owns it, Kronos, Saturn, Satan. And the people who work for the crown are working for Satan. And they tell you, I'm a crown officer and I've come to talk to you today. Oh, so you work for the crown, huh? Yeah, the crown. Well, what did Virgil say 2,000 years ago? Everyone knows that the crown belongs to Saturn. Only Saturn can wear that crown. And that's the rings around his, that's his crown. He has been enthroned, and he is the king of the dark world. Because Saturn in his negative side rules all the evil that's going on in the world. So this is how we fall many times, guys. But if we learn from the scriptures, Jesus did not answer questions, he asked them. So when an officer, who you can't hear anyway, when he says, what's your name? What would you do? Give your name because you're scared and you just want to get out of there and make it easy on yourself and your family. You've got kids, you've got to protect them and blah 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 blah. And make all these excuses as to why you actually comply with their artificial can't hear your voice. You're an officer, you're dead. Speak to me in your man personal capacity, then I can hear you. Why are we complying, and why are we telling him? Wouldn't you rather turn around and say, who wants to know? I do. Whom is I? Is it the eye in your skull? Is it someone called I that I need to learn his name? Who is I? Me. Are you a man or are you an officer? I'm an officer. Can't hear you. Sorry, can't hear you. I'm standing on the land. I'm a man. You thought I was a person. Sorry, you mistook me for someone else. Have I committed a crime? Am I being detained? And you see what happens, how everything just changes. The air changes because now you're like that Aboriginal who with his finger up in the air is going, get out, move, get out of this cordoned area. You're on my land. You see, go and watch the video. Search Aboriginals in Australia and in Canberra pitch their tents against the government and against blah blah blah. You'll find hundreds of videos now because they're out in full force there, man, and they're going to take the land back.
Yeah, I've seen those. I've been paying very close attention to Australia. This line always bothered me. Render to Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and I can't figure out why the fuck it bothers me so much. What is the deal with it?
That's somebody saying that you owe them something. That sucks. Fuck them.
No, I mean like the implication, right? Because Jesus is saying it, and he's saying, I don't know, is he saying don't bother with him and just give him what he wants and move on? Or is it accept, it sounds to me like accept the corporal authority and move on with the spiritual. What do you think, Santos?
Well, in fact, in the Greek, it says give back. Give it back. It's not yours. They gave you a birth certificate, which is not yours. It's theirs. You didn't copyright it. You weren't there as a baby going,
oh, in the Greek, it's give back to Caesar's the things which are Caesar's, like give
it back to them.
Give it back, like
it's
so
not yours.
So
give
when
back unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and give unto God what is God's, which means walk with God. Apostle Peter said, we obey God as ruler and not men. And they walked out of jail. Okay, because a man cannot stand and oppose God's laws. They know that. They know that they have to follow procedure. Anything they do wrong, how many times has someone gone to court and dismissed the case by saying, they didn't read me my rights? Yep. Dang! He knew his law, and the cops walk out of there. He walks out of there and laughs, and the judge is going, dang, man, we could have made some money on those bonds. I had a bid bond going. I had a performance bond going. That guy's got a lot of stocks on he's a billionaire on his birth in fidelity.com, on his birth certificate exchange, on the security stock exchange. I was going to make a packet out of that fool, but no, he's not so foolish. Never mind. Next idiot.
And it's crazy. Like those people who, I don't know if this is an extreme case, but if something was found in evidence later, and like it's the guy who's on trial is about to get off, they're almost done with it, and it's a video of him shooting the person in the head that they said that he killed, but they're like, nah, it's not admissible because you didn't do it the right way. Jury, please just forget everything that you just saw, and then they have to let him walk based on the evidence or the rules. It's very interesting. I have thought about this though. Then the same thing about the reading the right stuff. I'm like, these loopholes are just so weird. You're just like, you touch your nose or something, you're like purple, and they're like, you did the thing. We got to let him go. All right, get on out of here. It's just odd. You know what I mean? It's like there's this language. You've nailed it with this.
Yeah. So you have to know what you're doing, because a little bit of information, a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. You have to have extensive knowledge, right, to be able to deal with these criminals. And you have to know their tricks. And that's why the policeman always follows procedure, because the worst thing he can do is bring a case to court and he hasn't followed procedure, and the case gets dismissed and everybody loses out because they're all licking their lips, waiting for you to fall into all of their traps. Then they can go and make money on the stock exchange, and they've got money. The prosecutor gets money, the judges, the clerics, everybody's in on it, and they all get their little bit, and they're all happy and they're all rich and living in their mansions and driving their Ferraris, and on the back of law. Nah, legal. They are legal bandits. They are not lawful men. This is why Jesus said, woe unto you lawyers, and how you bind these little children of mine with heavy burdens. It would be better for you to have tied a millstone around your neck and cast yourself into the sea than to stumble one of these little children so as to not enter into the kingdom of heaven. You will not enter. You will not enter. Now, Jesus wasn't cursing law, because he said, I came to fulfill the law. He was a lawful individual in the literary scriptures, and he wasn't historical at all, but in that role of Jesus in the scriptures, he's actually a lawful individual rebuking the lawyers. He says, woe unto the lawyers, the scribes and the Pharisees and the Sadducees. What? Always those four. Well, the Sadducees, the scribes are the writers of indulgences. They are called notaries. There's the scribes. The Sadducees are the sad, you see, judges, because they are criminals, so they are sad, you see. And the Pharisees, they are the lawyers. And the prosecutors. And the lawyers, of course, are the legalese people who work for the crown. So all of these are covered in the courtroom. The scribes, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and the lawyers, which were condemned by God's Son, which means all of them are condemned. If they don't follow procedure, they know that if they do something against your sovereign will, when you do not enter their jurisdiction, the curse that they put on you and the harm they do to you will be magnified 1,000-fold forever in hell. So they don't want that, because they've been there already. They've come out of there and they're trying to make good, keep their power, because they know all the tricks. They've been down to hell. They've learned all the devil's tricks, and they've incarnated back onto this realm. They're using the same tricks, because that's old tricks, old dogs. But they're trying to do it so as, they put out legal waivers and disclaimers, and they actually legally make themselves less culpable. But nonetheless, their judgment, they might spare themselves from 1,000-fold curse, but they will get 100 minimum. They're stupid. They don't realize that they're falling into the same trap, and they think that legal disclosures and disclaimers and procedures are going to save them by using those same old tricks. You never use evil tricks and polish up a turd.
That's right. I wanted to ask you a question about this whole thing about influence. So this is one of the things that we talk about when we talk about like predictive programming, and that the powers that be, the good, the dark and the light, the heavy or the less dense energies here, the dichotomy here, this, dualistic universe that we live in, right? There's obvious energies, but it seems to what you said and to what you said earlier about Jesus, saying that he had to speak in metaphors and that he couldn't just say what was going on. It alludes to that's perhaps a lighter, less dense energy or high vibrational being that follows the same rules and constructs as the dark side of the lizard turds, as we like to call them. Because what we say about and why predictive programming comes into play with this is that they have to influence you. It's like a vampire. You have to invite it in. No one's going to force you down and hold you down and like take you to some camp. You've got to voluntarily go. Like it's on a voluntary basis. So it sounds like though Jesus did the same thing by speaking in parables, as you put it, because it can only influence, it can't directly affect. And then same with the darker, the more dense energies. They can't tell you what they could tell you. They could build a world of illusion for you, and it's up to you to kind of figure out how it works. But some of it's all in plain sight. But it's interesting how there's nothing really scary here. That it's ultimately up to you. But that, yeah, because we are all sovereign in the best way possible. It's just that you get programmed and tricked, and that's kind of what it boils down to, right?
Yeah, you can't save anyone. They have to save themselves or accept salvation. Like you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. These are the laws that you can't break. So Jesus wasn't telling anybody what to do. He was making suggestions. He was teaching, indirectly, speaking into the air. Whenever the disciples of Jesus saw him, it was an appearance. And Jesus appeared unto the 500. And Jesus appeared to Thomas Didymus, who doubted. And Jesus appeared, and Jesus appeared, and Jesus appeared. Well, that shows you that it wasn't historical and real. It was an appearance. It was a transcendental appearance. So, what that means is that people saw him, not with these eyes. He appeared unto them who believed. You see, because he wouldn't appear to the people that are blind. They're looking, where is he? Because they're literally blind physically. But spiritually blind people still can't. Remember, he said to the Pharisees, because you say that you can see and that you do understand, I tell you that you cannot see and that you are from the devil, because you say that you can see, because you can't. They said, we can see, we understand. They were standing there in front of him saying, we do understand it. And he said, well, because you say that, now I know that, you've condemned yourself even more. You should be humble and say, yeah, we don't get it. We don't see. Can you teach us? Like the humble apostle said, Jesus, can you give us more faith? Because they realize they have to invite that in. No one can force that on them. No one can force spirituality. No one can convert you. No one can save you. No one can steal your soul. It's prohibited. The law protects you. The universe has protected you already in many ways.
Yeah, and it's a great point you made earlier. They can't just put you in a camp. You have to participate in the system every single step of the way. You have to accept the illusion. You have to accept the premises of the game. You have to play the game. You can't break the rule. And it's when you break the rules of the new game that they invite you to the camp. And this is what I've always loved about Jesus, is that is just one hard son of a bitch. Like this guy, he was going up against the kings, the Pharisees, Sadducees. Like the way that you laid it out, I had never made the connection that he was railing against law, the practice of law and the subversion of law and God's law. And he was also railing against the bankers, the money changers at the temple. So he was literally flip the table,
flipping tables,
flipping the table. You know what I mean? And I was surprised he didn't DDT a guy through the table also.
People's elbow.
and so he was railing against the whole system, and he had to convince people to just see what was in front of them.
Yeah, He gave people back to themselves. That's the whole point. He was here to show people that they never needed to be saved. It's amazing. It's a beautiful thing, and it's so cool.
Yeah, it's reading the scriptures is the best thing you can do for yourself. Do yourself a favor and sit there one quiet day and spend a couple of hours with the Bible in your hands, and you'll do yourself a blessed favor. It is it's not a church book at all. It's totally a transcendental, spiritual, mystical book, which only reveals its precious secrets to those who have good hearts and eyes to see and ears to hear. It's only for those people who want to see those layers, who are, have an urgent calling for it, and it will only come to you in certain moments of your life. It's not always there. That energy is not always knocking at your door. Remember, Jesus said, "When you hear me knocking at your door, open, and I will have an evening meal with you. If you don't open, you'll miss out." And the Lord will just whisk by. So it's those moments when you feel that urge to be spiritual. It's like, when you have a sexual urge, what do? You go over and see what your partner's doing, hey, what are you doing, sweetie? And I'm feeling romantic. Well, what happens when you're hungry? You're out working in the garden and you're like, oh man, I'm going to faint. And there's an urge. I got to eat. You run inside and you grab an apple, you a la Homer Simpson, and you satisfy that urge. Well, why not satisfy the spiritual urge? We do sexual, we do bodily urges, sleeping, I'm tired, you go to sleep. But people never seem to find time in the day to meditate, read the Bible, read some philosophical poetry, Rumi or something nice, Kipling. Or there's much to exercise the mind and the spirit and the soul. And unfortunately, as Jesus said, raise your head and see that the harvest is rich, but the workers are few to bring in the harvest. And then he said another time, he says, I feel pity for these crowds who are skinned and torn and thrown about like sheep without a shepherd. But they do it to themselves. They turn the TV on and fall asleep in front of the TV. They wake up, go to work, eating, pooing, sleeping, drinking. That's it. The 4 activities of man: sleeping, eating, pooing, banging, weeing, and then they wonder why they're not happy. They're committing suicide. They're depressed. But they still keep up with the Joneses somehow. They've still got my 4 SUVs and a motorbike and a helicopter, swimming pool, double-story house, tennis court, and speedboat. But tomorrow you've read the newspaper and he's committed suicide. Oh, that guy who had all the houses well, Shane?
Dibs on the speedboat.
Yeah. And there's you thinking, I'm keeping up with him. Woo. But do you think people stop and think, oh, God, maybe that's what I'm doing. They don't see the connection. You're doing the same thing. You're killing yourself to live. It makes no sense. I've never been a chaser of material things. I bought a house once in my first marriage because she was a traditional Jehovah's Witness Italian and the parents wanted me to be stable and everything. And I had the money. I was doing good money. And so I thought, all right, well, I'll put a deposit on the house and get a house. It didn't work for me. I raised my son and it just didn't work. It's like, I got this house. I don't want this house. I'd rather live in someone else's house and let the landlord worry about all the expenses. I've got to fix this. I've got to fix that. No, I don't want a house. It's stupidity. And so that's been me. I've only ever had one car. I've never had more than one motor vehicle. I've never had possessions. I've got my guitar, I've got my spiritual books, my computer. That's all I need. I'm happy.
Yeah, I was surprised we'd gone the whole interview without mentioning music at all, since the 3 of us are musicians.
Yeah.
Strange thing right there.
I noticed that.
Yeah. Speaking of music, also, you had spoken about Led Zeppelin earlier. I got a Led Zeppelin question. How much does the bass pedal in Since I've Been Loving You on Zeppelin 4 bother you?
Squeak, isn't it?
Squeak,
I love it.
Squeak.
Yeah, squeak.
Can you imagine that? Like, I'm a musician. I'm a fucking perfectionist. If I'm in the studio, I don't listen to a take and go, "Damn, that was a good take." But that one thing that's bothering, I wouldn't keep the take. Who would keep the take? It wasn't that great of a, you know what I mean? I mean, John Bonham is amazing. Yeah. I'm sure he could have done it again. I'm sure someone would have been like, "Hey, go to the corner store, grab some WD-40, and let's get fucking do it again." What producer in his right mind would go, "Bet"?
We're talking about the genius Jimmy Page who produced Led Zeppelin. That's the secret. Every song of Led Zeppelin's was real. It was that the music is so real, so natural and magnetic. It has a mystical pull, a transcendental urgency about it like no other band. This band was head and shoulders above all the rest. Line them up, all the great bands, Pink Floyd, all these great bands, the Beatles, the Stones. I love them all. I'm right into them all. American music, Dylan. I was into Fleetwood Mac, Tim Buckley, Neil Young, all of the greats. But nothing satisfied me like one bar of Led Zeppelin was like listening to a whole album of Neil Young in terms of instant gratification and sensational fulfillment. One bar of Led Zeppelin is enough. I listen to them every day. I actually, because there's dogs barking here, and I'm a light sleeper, and when I hear that, if I haven't got earplugs, I'm up, and I'll be insomniac for the rest of the night because I'm angry at this dog. So I've got Led Zeppelin at half volume on my computer every single night. When I wake up to go to the bathroom, there's Kashmir in the background. So I go to the bathroom, Kashmir's there, I go straight back to bed, sleep straight away. They nurse me. They make me feel like a mother. I'm wrapped in the mother's arms. They fulfill me. They nourish me. Their music is nourishing. How does that happen? I don't know. They had it. They had the gift that no other band could possibly even achieve, although every single band tried to mimic them and tried to replicate what they had. But like Broken Mirrors, they all failed, in my opinion, all of them.
Yeah, what's that band that sounds exactly like Led Zeppelin? Greta Von Fleet.
Greta Von Fleet.
Yeah. They're pretty good, aren't they?
They're pretty good, but I mean, like, you can't just you have to announce yourself as a Led Zeppelin cover band. You know what I mean? You can't just do what they do.
They're original. They're unique. They are their own, and nothing has ever sounded like that ever.
Yeah.
Unrepeatable.
Yeah. I feel. You know what though? I feel a very similar way about the jazz greats. You know what I mean? Like Miles Davis, John Coltrane. Yeah. Thelonious Monk has an album called Thelonious Alone in San Francisco. Yeah. He was supposed to be playing with his band that day, but something fell through, and he was just like, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna do it." That is like. I can't, and you can hear him humming the whole time, which you can never hear during the regular recordings because the rest of the band's playing, and it's just like there's nothing like that. You know what I mean? Hearing Ruby, you know what I mean?
Like there's some magical albums, like Hotel California is just absolutely magical. Tim Buckley's Greetings from LA, magical. Neil Young's Rust Never. God, I can't remember. Harvest is my favorite of Neil Young's, but the Rust one is most people's favorite. But Harvest for me was like perfect album. But then you go listen to their other ones, and there's just then it falls. That magic falls. There are some gems of albums. Like there's some albums out there that are just amazing. Written in the skies, indelibly forever albums. But Led Zeppelin did that all the time in every song, in every bar. How could they sustain that quality and be mortal? You know, I just don't get it. Well, I do. When you know astrology and you realize, for instance, Jimmy Page is black, he's Capricorn, ruled by Saturn. Black. Leo, Robert Plant, golden-maned singer, is a Leo, ruled by the sun. Now, the sun is Horus and Saturn is Set. Well, it's the Horus and Set show. Right there. And the drummer is a what? Is a Gemini. John Bonzo was a Gemini. Well, the Gemini rules the arms and the hands. And then Jonesy was a Capricorn as well. Solid bass player, solid keyboard. You know, they're just the alchemy, astrologically, perfect.
Yeah, there was one configuration of my band that we just had. I don't even like the drummer that we have now is absolutely incredible, but there was something about the particular configuration that I'm talking about that there was some type of stupid magic there. And I'm a Gemini, the bassist is a Scorpio, the guitarist is a Capricorn, and the drummer was a Sagittarius. We had one of each element. Like, and it was just, there was something in the room, you know what I mean? Like it was like a switch would flip when the four of us would play. And it was really, I never knew that about Led Zeppelin, though. I never put that together.
Yeah, if you look at their charts and know what you're doing when navigating through the science of electromagnetism, you'll see that their electromagnetic constitution, astrologically, is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. And that's what every other band used to say in the 70s. I remember I used to go collecting the all the writings about Led Zeppelin from other bands, and the Who members and the Beatles and all these other bands would come out and just say, well, we always listened to Led Zeppelin. I thought, wow, these guys had something that other bands don't have. Even the band members themselves were cringing every time Led Zeppelin released an album, and thought, how can we keep up with these guys? They're just running rings around all of us. Everyone else was like in the shadows, looking up and grabbing Led Zeppelin's albums and listening to him and going, whoa, all right, okay. It's all over.
Mm-hmm.
They just had it. It was bestowed upon them to have the greatest musical experience by the gods, by the universe, by old man time. And that's how it is. I can't change it. No one can. They were a phenomena that came and left us quickly in 1980 when Bonzo died. Broke my heart. I was only, I was 17. Shattered me. And then John Lennon died 4 months later in 1980, same year. The two Johns that were my great inspirations. And John Lennon gets killed in December. Bonzo in September, in Libra, and then Lennon in Sagittarius in December, and that was it. It was all over. The 80s for me was the end of music, and then I didn't listen to anything from the 80s. There was nothing that appealed to me, nor did the 90s. A little bit here and there, but I was still going back to the 70s, because the golden age of music was from 69 to 75 period.
I would say right now, though, music is truly going through an amazing renaissance, and it's one that most people, they don't recognize for some reason or another, like the jazz, the funk, the
mumble rap.
Mumble rap. Yeah,
good call.
No, but I mean, I'm telling you, like especially the Americana, the folk, the country, it is back, and it is good, and it's I get a little heartbroken when someone says, fucking music's dead. Music's a bunch of trash. I'm like, what, you don't have Spotify? Like, what the hell is going on? Yeah. And it's because of the proliferation of just how easy it is to make music at a high quality, sitting in your pajamas at home, screwing around with Pro Tools, and the ease with which you can put it up online. And prior to 2020, the new model that had emerged with regards to, you could go on tour, you could live off of t-shirt sales, you could live, you know what I mean? Like, yep. And so I absolutely love it. Like Julian Lage is, he's a jazz guitarist I just saw back in December. Friggin' incredible. You know what I mean? And he's a good example of the new era of jazz and of music generally, I think.
Yeah, pretty impressive. Some of the musicians kicking around now. Very, very impressive. I get impressed because I haven't been professional for 9 years now, and I've lost my touch. And I see these flamenco guitarists just running rings around me, and I go, whoa.
The 16-year-old flamenco guitarist, and you're like,
lose my breath.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. What these kids can do. It's like they've been playing it for millions of lives, and they just come on the scene, 12 years old, pick up a guitar, and speak it.
And then you say, like, how did you learn that? Well, I saw a few videos on YouTube.
Yeah. Like, shut up. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Good on him.
For sure. Well, good on him.
Yeah. Well, dude, this has been amazing. Like, I just have one more question for you, if you don't mind. I do, Jay, if you had something else, but I want to know what you think the moon is.
I know for a certainty that the moon is not a rock, because we would see it pass in front of the sun every 27, 28 days at the new moon. And for some strange reason, it disappears for 60 hours. It just jumps out of the sky. And at midday, you look at the sun and you're looking for the moon because it's there. But where is it? Well, it's disappeared, hasn't it? Because it's a luminous body. The light of the sun cancels out the moon's sun. The astrologers were saying thousands of years ago that when any luminous wandering star comes within 15 degrees of the sun, it is burnt or comes under the rays of the sun, hence invisible. What happens to the stars when the sun comes up in the morning? They fly. They're gone. You can't see the stars. They're there. They're still there. And right now the sun's in Capricorn. Well, at midday, if you look for Capricorn behind the sun, you won't see those stars there. Why? Because the sun has burnt the whole sky. The sun dominates the world, and it says, "Ye shall flee from my presence. I'm the King and Lord." And whenever the moon comes near it, disappears for 60 days. That's why the Muslims always celebrate, look for the new moon. And as soon as they see that 7 degrees illumination of the crescent of the moon, they stop their fasting and they rejoice. Ah, the King has resurrected again. That's the Christ dying in the tomb for 3 days and then being resurrected. It happens every month.
Oh, so cool.
It's a luminous body. And how can we know by doing research, say on Wikipedia? All right, well, for all the non-believers out there who are having a laugh and thinking, the astronauts landed on, it's a rock, Santos. Well, can they land on Saturn? Because in Wikipedia it says Saturn is a gas giant. Jupiter is a gas giant made of hydrogen and helium. Well, good luck if you're going to go and land on Saturn on some hydrogen gas up there, and good luck to you, because the moon is no different. When I get my camera and zoom in on Venus, Mars, they're not terrestrial. They're flickering lights. They are sonoluminescent archangelic beings. The sun is made of hydrogen. 70%, 20% helium. It's gas. Eric Dollard says the sun is cold and it's empty inside. Entirely cold and empty. There's nothing inside that, what you see as the face of the sun. Behind that is nothing. And the only heat possible is in the arcing of the solar arcs. But apart from that, the sun is entirely cold.
John Lear talked about this. His dad invented the Learjet, and he's big into ufology. He was best friends with Bob Lazar, probably still is, but he talked about this, that it was more of an electromagnetic luminary, that it wasn't hot to the touch. It was just electromagnetic, and therefore it reacted, and that's why we get warmth and all of that stuff. But it was fascinating. I love that kind of concept. I love that. And especially when you look at the moon, and Jay and I were kind of chatting about it a little bit before here, about how, it doesn't reflect like a sphere, and I've heard you speak about this. So of course, it's a flat edge. It reflects all of the light evenly, or like you can see blue through the craters, and if it's out during the day, like there are so many anomalous things with it, and how it lines up perfectly with the sun, like mathematically, or our planet size, allegedly couldn't catch something that big and all that kind of stuff. It's really, really interesting. And then when you look at the work of like Alex Coyer and folks who look at the hollow moon, where it's a hollowed out planetoid that was brought here, because there are ancient cultures, several of them, independent of each other, that have written about time before the moon was here. And it wasn't an allegory. It wasn't a metaphor. It was talking about that they remember the moon being brought here. And there's several cultures talking about that. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of mysteries that we don't know, but if we keep our minds and hearts open, we will see that the sun and the moon and the stars, they cannot be understood with a material, mundane mind. They are transcendental. We are mundane. They escape time and space, like the rainbow. You see a rainbow there and you say, well, it's there. I can see it. Well, it's not there. There's nothing there. It's a projection. It appears to be there, but it's not there. It really is not there. It's just an appearance. It's a projection. It's a phenomena of light, which is substanceless. And that's essentially what the sun is, reacting with hydrogen in the hydrogen canopy called the firmament. And therefore, they say, oh, it's made of hydrogen. Well, maybe, yes, some kind of plasma is happening there, but the sun is pulsing. It's pulsing at such a fast rate, and so is our heart. About 2 million times a second, there's a pulse to both of them, and they're in sync with each other. And we can't see the sun switching on and off. It's that fast, but it's a pulse. It's a pulsating orb, which means it is magnetic, because electricity doesn't pulse. Electricity is a waveform. So the sun defies the electrical definition or designation. It defies that. It produces as a secondary effect the electrical wave, because it's the field perturbator. It perturbs the field with its pulsing, and the field gets agitated, and all the neon and argon in the under the dome becomes light. That's why the light is even in this. It's not rays making more light here and then darkness over there. The sun's light is absolutely incoherent all over the earth. It's like a cloak threaded through the heavens, and there's no breaks in the thread. How can that be? Because it's a field perturbator. It perturbs all the field at once, and none of the field is ripped and torn. And therefore, as a gas fills a room, every corner of the room, it just fills everywhere you go in the room. You can smell that gas, because it just like water. When you put it in a crooked cup, the water is now crooked. But this doesn't mean the water's crooked. It's just that the water fills that cup, because that's how nature is. So the sun fills this space with light, and there's no emptiness in light.
Does this guy know how to party or what?
Oh yeah, Santos Bonacci, man, dude, what a badass, man. This has been amazing. This has been absolutely incredible.
Yeah, Santos, I really do want to thank you for coming on, man. This was friggin' awesome. I thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's nice to be able to speak where people can relate to what you're saying with an open mind and an open heart, and they can understand what is not easily understandable to the layman or the busy individual who's very, very mundane and, automaton-ish, somnambulant, robotic. There's more to humans than working, eating, sleeping, and this mundane stuff, man. Let's rejoice in music. Let's make great music. Let's make great theology, astrology. Let's learn the nature of this universe, which is electromagnetism. Let's be masters and magi of this great, great Holy Spirit of God, electromagnetism.
Beautiful. Dude, I think that's going to cap it, man. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you so much, Santos. Jay, you're a badass, dude. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.